Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy my conversation with Leticia Ward as she shares about her solo travel journeys. Leticia, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And I'm going to refer to you as Tish, as that is your preferred name. I just like to be formal in that initial introduction.
Yes, Leticia is more the name I give to the police or when I'm in trouble with my mother. So Tish is better. Tish
is better. I love it. Although, if you need to go a little bit covert when you're traveling solo, it never hurts to have, the one name that you give everybody and then the name that you only give the weirdos.
Yes, actually, that's what I told my receptionist. I say anybody that says, "Oh, I know Leticia, we're very good, put me through." I go, that's when it goes to voicemail.
It's an excellent screening tool. I understand.
Who knew? When my mother named me growing up, I wanted my name on all the cool pencils and stuff, and I could never find it. But now I've grown into it. I like it.
Well, wonderful. Well, you just recently hit a milestone birthday, and even though this episode is going to air in a couple weeks, so we're not right on top of your birthday at that time, I want to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you. I'd like to think it's a whole month, so I'll take it.
That sounds great. So will you share with us where you're at in your life as you hit this milestone birthday?
So my milestone is hitting the big 4-0, and where am I in my life? I feel like I'm having a little bit of a midlife crisis, if I'm going to be perfectly frank. Given the political climate that's going on right now, it really has kind of put me topsy-turvy with also turning this elusive 4-0 number that everybody talks about. And so part of that and what I've decided to do is that I am going to take a 4-month cross-country road trip, solo for the most part, and see as many national parks as I can. And see where my head is at after I finish that 4-month journey.
That sounds amazing.
I'm looking forward to it.
Give me your why. Like, there's a lot of whys that can come out of that. And I think there's going to be several that will resonate with our listeners. So what's your why?
Well, yes. Well, I should start off by saying I did not plan this. So my cross-country trip is going to start in May. And if you had asked me this question even 30 days ago or 5 weeks ago, I would have gave you a very different answer. I thought I was just planning for a trip to Belgium for 2 weeks. And sort of organically with the political climate and some friends asking me to stay with them, it just turned into this 4-month journey. So the why part of it is I have some very good friends that live in Charleston, South Carolina that I rarely get to see. I live in Boston, Mass. And they asked me if I wanted to take a vacation with them to Yellowstone Park for 10 days in May. And I said, yes, of course I do.
Wow.
Yeah. For the most part, I've been a pretty avid traveler, or traveled as much as I could since my early 20s. And I've actually mostly only explored outside of the United States. I've always been interested in, like, what is the world outside of my world? And that's prompted me to do as much traveling as I can. But I think I have a little bit of that Northeast elitism snobbery to me where I wanted to go explore like Europe and outside of the United States. And the truth is that there's a lot of beauty and amazingness in the United States itself. So, not knowing what's going on with our national parks and this whole political climate, when a friend said, "Do you want to, vacation with us in Yellowstone?" I said, "Heck yeah, I do. This is a perfect opportunity to see that part of the United States." And after 10 years of being carless, I actually just bought a car as well. So I have a brand new car. I've never had a brand new car. And so, and I never use it. And I've always wanted to do that cross country trip when you were in your 20s, Jack Kerouac, must go west. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen for me. I was too busy traveling either outside of the United States or just for whatever reason. I lived on a little island for 5 years on Martha's Vineyard. So sometimes it's hard to get off the island. And then in my 30s, by that time, most of my friends had already done a cross country trip and didn't really either were having babies or families and more settling down. And so to try to find somebody that was willing to do how many weeks off of work right as you're starting to get into your career to do a cross country trip, it just didn't seem to be. So I had resonated in my head that, well, this is something I'll do when I'm retired.
Yes.
Get
yes,
the streamline, and Winnebago and just kind of go around. And I kind of settled with that being the idea. But turning 40 and my friends going to Yellowstone and now having this car and just being very uncertain with what is going to happen with our land, I thought, you know what, there is no time like the present, and who cares if I don't have somebody to drive with me? I have tons of people to go visit along the way, and I'm just going to try to take advantage and see as many national parks as I can.
So why
So
the national park? Well, okay, I got the why of the national parks.
Uh-huh.
4 months is a long time. And
It sure is.
I'd like to hear a little bit about how you're structuring this trip, as well as I'd like to hear a bit about, what made you decide 4 months? Have you sketched the whole thing out? What's the deal?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm approaching this the way I pretty much approach a lot of my traveling planning, quote unquote. I have air quotes going on right now. I love to just have anchoring thoughts and anchoring things to do, and then I fill in along the way so that it kind of gives a push-pull of being efficient, kind of knowing your plan, but also being open to spontaneity. So the way I planned it is I know that my friends have much more of a structured when they can take time off. So I know that I'm going to be in Yellowstone from May 10th to the 20th.
Got it.
And so I use that as one of the anchoring spots. And in this 4 months, I also know I'm going to do my trip to Belgium. So I'm doing 4 months cross country, but insert 2 weeks in Europe. And this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but it's like, yeah, cross country trip and a little bit of Europe. And people are like, what? And not only am I doing that, but I'm actually going to fly out of San Francisco to go to Belgium. And most people like to tap me on the shoulder and go, Tish, do you realize that Boston is actually much closer to Belgium? But it's part of the whole planning in my mind that makes sense, which is I'm already going to be out in Yellowstone in the Pacific Northwest-ish. I don't know if that's exactly where the geography line grows, but it's very close. And one of the people that I was going to meet in Belgium lives in San Francisco.
Okay.
So never visiting the Pacific Northwest, I thought, okay, well, I'm already going to be in national park. How many national parks could I get between leaving for Belgium May 29th to between the 20th of leaving Yellowstone National Park and 29th landing in San Francisco? So then that started. So then I just kind of looked at, I'm also very interested in beer and terroir. So I'm going to visit a couple of breweries also along the way. So I have a Google map, which is one layer of all the national parks in the United States. And then I have another Google layer map of all the breweries that I want to make sure to see. And I'm just kind of Venn diagramming them together to see kind of what makes the most sense and let that kind of guide me in terms of, yeah, where to go and what to do.
Okay, well, you're
And
making me
then,
giggle just a little bit. Let's let's talk for a second about this whole layering of Google Maps, because
oh, yeah.
I actually just did that for a woman who just a woman that I saw on a site that was really feeling a little bit desperate about how to graph her trip in England. She had created all her points of interest, but she was really struggling with that idea of getting from point A to point B. And I just quickly put together a Google map and sent it. And like, you don't realize what technology people might be familiar with or might not be familiar with. So this idea is you can actually pin places
Mm-hmm.
on a Google map where places of interest. And what Tish was mentioning was that this idea of layers, where she can have one layer for one set of points of interest, like the breweries, versus
Mm-hmm.
another layer of all these other interests. And so when you bring it up on your phone, you actually can navigate and create driving directions so easily. And you save so much time by doing this part in advance. It's not saying that you're scripting every motion, but you
Yeah.
have all of the possibilities
Yeah.
easily accessible, and then you can create those driving directions or things like that. So kudos on leveraging that technology. And I will say that actually might be something that you consider sharing with people who have similar interests.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to do it. And I've been traveling since 1998 on my own. And man, back in those days, remember we had I don't know how old you are, but there was the Let's Go book.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't know, even though by the time you got to a place, if that hostel or B&B was still even available. And when you're in a foreign country and you're not familiar with how addresses are set up, it can take you a lot longer. And or something could be closed by the time they printed it and sent it out. So the Google Maps and the ability to access the internet it's a push pull, because sometimes you want to get all the things in because you know about everything, but especially something like this cross country trip where I just in some ways didn't know where to start. I just kind of started to formulate it. It's really fabulous, and my philosophy when traveling is I want to be efficiently relaxed. So
Perfect.
I don't want my day to be spent only finding directions or how do I get from point A to point B, and doing all of those things. I want to be relaxed, but I also don't want to spend the whole day just seeing one thing because I couldn't figure out how to get from point A to point B. And yeah, this Google Maps and being able to do that it's just made my life so much easier. When I was in Malaysia, I had not planned any of my Indonesian part of the trip. And I did it all in Malaysia, is how I planned my Indonesian trip part of it.
Got it.
And it was a little bit of Google Maps and technology and closing my eyes. And so, yeah, it's really been helpful.
It's like you're playing spin the bottle with your destinations in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the benefits of traveling solo is exactly that. You're free to set your own agenda and be at your own whims, but also join others that you might even meet up along the way and that say, oh, hey, have you ever heard of this monument, or you like national parks? There's this beautiful waterfall over here. And maybe that wasn't on my map or I wasn't aware of it, but it sounded really interesting and something I want to do. When you're solo, you can kind of pick and choose that way. And it's not, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people saying like, well, I don't know. I really want to make sure we stay on this kind of schedule. And that's one of the benefits of being solo, is being able to kind of take in and do whatever it is that you want to do. So,
Absolutely. Well, how did you get
yeah,
started on solo travel? We've been talking about what you're going to be doing next, which is awesome.
sure.
But where did you get
Yeah.
started?
Well, I got started by being weird and interested in doing things that others didn't necessarily want to do. So, to backtrack that, I mean, I did the backpacking through Europe kind of thing in college, and my friends just didn't want to spend the money or the time doing that. And
Okay.
so I very quickly figured out that if I want to do something, then what should stop me other than the planning and the money and the time? And so I've been I grew up an only child for 12 years, so I think I have a very strong sense of independence. And I just decided this is the way that if I want to go and see Spain, then, and nobody wants to go, well, why should that stop me? I'm sure I'll meet people there. And that's how it kind of started. And then it just seemed that I never could have people syncing up with my schedules just quite in the same way. And so I let my curiosity be my guide more than anything else.
That
And
makes
so
complete
that's,
sense.
yeah, yeah. And then here's the thing. So I always play this game. Any place that I visit outside of my home base, I see if I can find 1 degree of separation from somebody.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I have been in some pretty obscure places, and I have always found this. In fact, even when I went in 2011 to Tanzania to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
Yeah, which was super cool. Highly recommended. And on my way down the mountain, so you get to the summit, then you come back down, and on the last day, coming down the mountain, I'm walking, and by that point, you've met up with other people in different camps. You don't really see them going up, but on the way down, you tend to bunch up, so to speak. And I'm just walking along, and then this person has a shirt that said it was for CrossFit or something, but it didn't really say the state or like the location. But I asked her, I said, "Oh, I said, is this a Massachusetts CrossFit gym?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, I live in Massachusetts, Boston area." And he said, "Oh, cool. Do you do CrossFit?" I said, "I do." I said, "That name looks so familiar." And he said, "Oh, well, this is Amanda's gym." I go, "Oh, Amanda's my instructor." And
What?
so we ended up having all these same friends. So for the rest of the walk down, we just chatted about, people we knew, and it was very easy to. So even in Tanzania on a mountain, I was able to find somebody with a 1 degree of separation. And so it's always, same thing happened to me in Thailand. When I traveled in Thailand, I was there for 3 months in 2003. And this was during a time that they were asking Americans not to really travel because we weren't sure if we were going to go into war at that point. This is the Bush, Iraq, Iran years.
Sure.
But of course, I don't let things stop me. And I wanted to go to Thailand for 3 months. So I did. And my mother asked me to pretend I was Canadian. Um, so on my trip back down to Chiang Mai and to Bangkok, I was on a bus and I met my first Americans. I was there for 3 months. I only met 4 Americans total during that time period. And 2 of them were people who lived in Massachusetts. And we went to, they had a really good friend from one town that was a good friend that I knew from college. So I
Wow.
feel that traveling solo is more just a It's more just about the plane ticket maybe that you're buying, but I don't ever feel like I'm solo, even when I'm traveling solo.
Well,
It's
one of
just a
my
little more
taglines is that you can go solo, but you don't have to be alone.
exactly.
Hmm.
I think that nails it. That's how I have always felt. Um, yeah, is I don't ever feel alone.
Well,
I
and there's
even with
nothing
traveling solo.
wrong. There's nothing wrong
No.
with being alone, but I think the degree to which we choose to engage, that's what is available to us. If we're going to, kind of keep in a situation where we're going to remain solitary, well,
Hmm.
then that's what we're
Yeah.
going to get. But we have the ability to choose to engage differently, and we'll get those results then as well.
Yeah, 100%. I always say like I'm an extrovert in the sense that I gain my energy around people, but I have a shy personality and have a lot of introverted type of tendencies. And solo traveling is amazing for that because you're definitely going to get that alone time. And then you can choose if you want to be a little bit more outwardly or not. And it's really up to you. The nice thing about traveling solo too is I found that you really get a more sense of the terroir and the land that you're visiting because I get a lot more interaction with locals that way. I think if people see that you're by yourself, you're a little more approachable, first of all, because who wants to approach a group of people, right? But oftentimes when I travel, people they want to meet the American. I look very American. I can't hide that. And so I think that when you travel solo, you get a lot of help if you want to. And people will ask you, do you need any help when you're staring at, the train or bus station going, how do I figure out what bus to get to Chiang Mai? And people I have found are very helpful and want to help the person that looks slightly lost, but you're much more approachable when you're solo versus if you're in a group, people will, oh, they'll figure it out. And then you get a chance to really talk with the locals. I mean, that's one of the pieces that I do like about traveling solo is I feel that when I visit a place that I really get to know the place. And that's a specific interest of mine. I'm very interested if I'm going to Italy, I want to know how do the Italians in that area, how do they live? What do they eat? What do they drink? And that happens and is much easier to do when you're solo. I've been invited to so many people's houses to have dinner, complete strangers.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, some of the stories I have, people are like, that would never happen to me, and I'm thinking maybe, but maybe not. But also, I haven't ever been afraid to go solo and to go at it because people are nice out there. If you want to be around people, they'll be around you, and if you want to just chill out and be on top of Kilimanjaro and watch the sun come up and not talk to anybody, you can do that too.
So, what are some of the concerns that you had when you first started traveling solo? One of the things that I'm looking
Mm,
at is studying the fears that women have of solo travel. And some of them are very rational and some of them are
yeah.
irrational. What were some of your fears when you started?
So as much as I love to internationally travel, my fear is how bad my ear and ability to pick up foreign languages is and still continues to be. And I was worried about being able not being able to get where I needed to go or to experience things the way that I thought they would be because of a language barrier. Um, and that so traveling in 1998 versus traveling now is radically different. That fear is, should I don't think anybody should fear if they can speak even a little bit of English. I've everywhere I've gone, people have spoken a little bit of English. In fact, sometimes I'm like, too many people speak English. I want the authentic accent and language of this area. I did pick up a little bit of Swahili, which weirdly enough, I picked that up out of all the languages to pick up. Somehow Swahili seemed to stick a little bit. So that was a fear that quickly went away though. And that again kind of falls back to people want to help. I was in 1998, my friend that I met up with in Paris, she wanted to mail something back to the United States. And she said, you took 2 years of French in high school, so let's go to the post office. And she wanted to meet to like negotiate and find out how much it would cost to, send this and what would be the cheapest. Things that could be confusing even if you spoke the same language.
Sure.
Never mind your 2 years of French, in which I got, and this is not a lie, an award for trying so hard, but being bad at it. Like, I got that award. Like,
They didn't
your
give those
earnest
out a lot.
effort is it's acknowledged, but you suck at French. I'm like, I know, I'm so sorry. And I mean, because I used to be ashamed of not being able to pick up this language because I've always had a wanderlust in me my entire life. And it was so embarrassing not to pick up, not to have those two pieces. And that quickly went away because when I was in line at the post office, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be so embarrassed. The French hate the Americans. I'm, 20 years old and they're just going to laugh at me. And this one French person overheard us talking and he stepped in and he did all the negotiations.
Wow.
And it worked out more than fine. And we said, thank you afterwards. Can we buy you a drink or a sandwich, a baguette, something? And he just said, no, I hope you enjoy your time and I'm happy to help. So that was one of my fears, that each time I do go to a different country, I have to remind myself that it's going to be okay and that that's actually not going to be as bad as you think. And then my other fear, I don't too much worry about physical safety, although I am embarrassed to say that going to India is high on my list, but lower on my list to do solo. That is one country, and I hate to group a whole country together like that, that from talking with people, that it does seem to be a little bit better if you can travel with somebody, especially because of how American I look. So that is one fear. In fact, I saw very quickly that you have a discussion like this on there that I really want to listen to because I saw the title of it and I said, "Ooh, I really need to listen to that." I've been confirmed by people from India that you probably should just travel with somebody, even if it's another woman. I mean, it's not so much the woman specific, although that doesn't help, but more just so many people, depending on where you're going, kind of idea.
Yeah, the crowd is I think unlike things that we really experience here in the US.
Yeah. And I met a wonderful woman from when I was in Indonesia. Went and visited this volcano called Kilamutu. It's really interesting. It has 3 lakes inside of it that are all different colors, and they change throughout the year.
Cool.
And so even though they're all from the same water source, it's this like science meets spiritual. It's like the 3 lakes are always vastly different colors. And in some ways it doesn't make sense because, I mean, the sand and soil particles are all the same. So why would they have different? So it's very interesting. So when I was there, I met a woman who is Russian, but she fell in love and married an Indian man. She was there with her daughter. And I explained to her, I said, "Oh, I've always wanted to go there, but I am a little bit nervous about solo." And she said, "Well, I think actually you have a right to be, but don't worry, you're going to stay with me," and immediately gave me her card.
Sure. Which is awesome.
Yeah, which was great. And she said, and so don't let that stop you, because I'll find you somebody, or you will just stay with me the whole time. And to this day, her daughter asked to be my friend on Facebook, and she turned to her mom and said, "My first American friend." She was so excited. So yeah, that's one fear, I guess, I have a little
That
bit.
makes sense. So
Yeah.
And how did your family deal with you embarking on solo travel? What about their, input, fears? How did you just move on from some of that?
Well, so I grew up extremely poor and a single single mother. And my mother always thought I was a strange child because she would say, "Where would you like to go on vacation in the summer?" And I would tell her West Africa. And she's like, no. I was thinking the beach. And how do you know about West Africa? And to the point that even in college, I studied African history. I have some kind of pull towards West Africa.
Sure.
And on my first trip where I decided to go, my mother just recognized that I'm fiercely independent and just asked me to be safe. And that's always how she has left it. She's more in awe that I'm willing to just put myself out there. She herself is a independent, strong woman. I mean,
Sure.
She raised 2 kids. My brother and I are 12 years apart. But it's a different kind of independence to travel solo and to just kind of put it out there. So she has always admired it and is usually asking, "Where are you going to go next? What's your next trip?"
Awesome.
Same thing with my brother. My brother and I are polar opposites. I mean, the only thing we have in common is a sense of humor. We have the same sense of humor, but in every other way, polar opposites. My brother doesn't even have a license, and only this year has he ever left Massachusetts. I drove him up to Vermont.
Wow.
So when I say opposite, I mean pretty much on the scale of completely opposite.
Wow.
And yeah, right? It's really kind of funny to me. I always laugh. And he has it as a sense of, I guess, pride about his sister. He always tells his friends, like, "Oh, my sister's going away for another month over to blah, blah, blah land," and that kind of stuff. And I've asked him, if he's ever wanted to go with me or if he ever wanted to plan a trip together. And he kind of has a little bit of, I think, he has a little bit of fear just about the unknown.
Sure.
Where the fear of or the unknown to me is exciting and I want to figure it out, so to speak. Where for him, it's more like, "I'll let other people do that. You go do it. I'll sit here and you let me know."
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think they just have a lot of faith in me. And
Absolutely.
and just they like hearing the stories that I come back with, and it's pretty fine that way.
So what would be one of the life lessons that you've learned from your solo travel adventures?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Well, I would say that one, you can do anything. You're a lot stronger than you think that you are, and a lot more resourceful than you might think you are. That not to fear the unknown, because that's when you really push yourself that way. When you put yourself in a situation that you are unsure about, that's when you really get to learn about yourself and really figure out some things that you're not bombarded by marketing or what your friends, I mean, if you've had friends for 20 years and they still, lovingly think of you as maybe they met you when you were 19 years old and now you're 40 and they're like, "Oh, that's not who you are. Why are you doing this?" I mean, people change in 20 years, 10 years,
Sure.
1 year, 6 months. And being able to travel solo and travel, I think, really helps you dial into your personality traits and what you do like and what you don't like.
I love it.
Which is just as important to learn. You got to learn what you don't like too.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think that's the strongest. People always say you learn about yourself traveling, and that's true, but that feels more generic. I think you really do get to just explore different parts of your personality and really figure out what it is that makes you tick. It's a nice, refreshing, actually.
I love it. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you today, Tish. I would like to make sure that you have a moment to share with others what you have coming up and how they could connect with you.
Yeah, this has been really great. Gosh, who doesn't love talking about travel? I feel like I could do this forever.
I know. This is
What a great idea to make your money
gig.
and Yes, but I have a blog called Mindful Drinking that I'm going to use as a way to kind of chronicle my cross country trips, and also have different pieces about food and drink that I'm exploring along my way, and mindful thoughts also that come with traveling. So if people want to follow me through that, it's a great way to, yeah, to engage and meet others and and connect.
Wonderful. So we will post the link to that blog in our show notes so people can find you and hopefully follow your journey a bit. That's actually where the biggest challenge of blogging is when you travel, is that,
Mm.
when you're traveling, hopefully you're traveling for you. And when you're blogging, you're also blogging for you, but oftentimes you're blogging for others. And, you do want to have the right balance of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. I will say I'm newer to blogging. I'm much better at just talking. So I will also appreciate any kind of feedback and engagement that way.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for spending time with us today, Tish. And I look forward to seeing how your 4-month journey in the national parks, how that works out for you. It should be fun to watch.
Thank you again, Jennifer. I appreciate it. It's been really lovely talking with you.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Tish shared with us today? I loved that we talked about going solo, not alone, but she had a specific strategy related to that, where she looked for 1 degree of separation, and she was finding connections all over the world, even in remote locations. Really think about that as an opportunity for you to connect and truly not feel alone when you're traveling. We've reached the end of today's episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. Just go to www.transformviatravel.com to join the Go Solo Sisterhood Facebook community and share your thoughts. If you've liked what you've heard, please invite your friends to listen to Go Solo Live. If you want to be a guest, reach out to me directly at jennifer@transformviatravel.com. Until next time, remember, go solo, not alone.